Okay, so we all know the deal, right? You hit the gym, you lift heavy, you push yourself to the absolute limit, all to build some muscle. That hard work? That's just the price of admission. But have you ever really stopped to think about what happens after you rack the weights?
Because here's the thing, you don't actually build muscle in the gym, you break it down. The real magic, the actual growth, well, that happens somewhere else entirely. And to figure out where that is, we've got to look at the formula for growth itself. So to really get why recovery is such a huge deal, first we need to do a super quick recap on the science of how muscles get bigger and stronger in the first place. It's not just about, lifting heavy stuff, it's about creating a very specific biological signal.
And it really comes down to these three key things working together. First, you've got mechanical tension. That's just the force from lifting heavy weights. Simple enough. Then there's muscle damage, which are those little micro tears you create in the muscle fibers. And finally, you have metabolic stress. You know that pump or burn you feel? That's it. All three of these together send this massive signal to your body that basically screams, hey, we need to adapt and get stronger.
And that signal, it has to keep getting louder over time. And that's the whole idea behind progressive overload. Look, your body is smart. It's efficient. It's not going to build new energy-expensive muscle unless you give it a really good reason. You have to keep asking it to do just a little bit more than it's used to. This is the absolute non-negotiable bedrock of getting stronger. But what happens if you send that signal, but your body isn't in the right state to even receive it?
Well, that's where this fascinating study comes in. It asked a really simple but brutal question. What happens if you do all that hard work in the gym, but then you completely take away one of the most important parts of recovery, sleep?
Researchers got a group of healthy guys and put them through an absolutely grueling leg workout. We're talking 240 eccentric reps. That's the lowering part of the lift, which is known to cause a ton of muscle damage. And then here's the clever part. Every single participant went through both recovery scenarios. One time, they got to sleep normally. The other time, they were kept awake for 2 full days, 48 hours of total sleep deprivation.
And this diagram from the paper just lays it all out perfectly. You can see everyone comes in and does that insane workout on day 1. The top line there shows the sleep group. They get 2 nights of regular rest, pretty standard. But then look at that bottom line for the deprivation group. See those beds with the X's through them? That means right after that punishing workout, they were kept awake, in the lab, under supervision for 48 straight hours, no sleep. At all.
So you'd think the guys who didn't sleep would be way weaker, right? Their recovery would be completely shot. Well, this is where the first result from the study throws a major curveball.
So the scientists were looking at recovery in 2 different ways. First, their external physical strength. How quickly did they get their power back? And second, their internal environment. What was actually going on with their hormones and inflammation based on their blood work? All right, let's look at the strength results first. This chart shows their peak strength. The black line is the group that slept, and the gray line is the sleep-deprived group. Now, just like you'd expect, their strength totally cratered right after the workout. But here's the absolute shocker. It recovered at almost the exact same rate. After 60 hours, there was basically no difference between them.
I mean, listen to the study's own conclusion. They literally wrote, total sleep deprivation does not delay muscle strength recovery. Staying awake for 2 days straight after that brutal workout did not slow down how quickly their strength bounced back. That is astonishing.
So this just begs the question, right? If your strength comes back just as fast and you can go into your next workout feeling strong, does a bad night of sleep, or even 2, actually hurt your long-term progress? Well, it turns out strength is only half the story.
Because when the researchers peeked under the hood and looked at that internal environment, a completely different and kind of scary picture emerged. While the participants might have felt like they were recovering just fine, inside, their bodies were in a state of absolute chaos.
This chart right here says it all. It shows the ratio between cortisol, our main stress hormone, and testosterone, a key muscle-building hormone. In the group that slept, that ratio is nice and low. That means their bodies are in an anabolic or building state. But look at the deprivation group. Whoa, that ratio is dramatically higher. Their bodies had completely flipped into a catabolic or breakdown state.
And it just gets worse. If we look at these charts, the one on the right confirms that cortisol, the stress hormone, was way higher in the sleep-deprived guys. No surprise there. But check out the one on the left. That's IGF-1, a hormone that's absolutely critical for repairing and growing muscle. It was also completely out of whack. This isn't a picture of a body ready to build muscle. It's a body under extreme stress.
And then there's the inflammation.
The researchers measured a key marker for systemic inflammation called IL-6. And get this, it was 67% higher in the sleep-deprived group over a 24-hour period. 67%! So their bodies weren't just stressed, they were highly inflamed.
Okay, so what in the world does all of this mean for you and your workouts? It means we need to connect these dots because what's at stake when we shortchange our sleep is, well, it's everything we're working for.
And this really gets to the core of it. We're talking about two totally different realities. On one hand, there's how you feel. You might go to the gym after a rough night and feel surprisingly strong, maybe even hit your numbers. But on the other hand, there's what's actually happening inside your body. And the science is clear. Your body is swimming in stress hormones and inflammation, creating an environment that is just awful for actually repairing muscle and building new tissue.
So here's the bottom line. One bad night of sleep isn't going to totally tank your strength for the next day's workout. But, and this is a huge but, it robs your body of the hormonal environment it needs to actually benefit and build muscle from that workout. If this becomes a habit, chronic poor sleep can totally sabotage your progress by keeping you stuck in that breakdown state. True growth, true adaptation, it requires both things, the workout and the recovery. Sleep isn't a luxury. It's a non-negotiable pillar of muscle growth.
So the next time you're mapping out your training week, don't just think about the sets and the reps and the exercises. Ask yourself this. Are you giving your recovery as much thought as your workout? Are you planning your sleep with the same intention? Because as this science shows, that might just be where the real gains are actually made.
Let's talk about one of the most frustrating things in fitness. You know the feeling. You're training hard, you're being consistent, but the results, they just aren't matching the effort you're putting in. What if I told you the key isn't just about what you're doing in the gym, but maybe what you're not doing outside of it? Seriously? Have you ever felt like that? Like you're just spinning your wheels. You show up, you do the work, you push yourself, but you're just stuck on a plateau. It's like you're just going through the motions. Well, today, we're going to unpack the science behind why that happens and shine a light on a critical variable you might be completely overlooking. All right, let's start with the one fundamental, non-negotiable rule of growth. Your body is basically an adaptation machine. It doesn't change for fun, it only changes when it's forced to. This one principle is what all progress is built on. And that force has a name: progressive overload. It's a really simple but incredibly powerful idea. To get stronger, to build muscle, you have to consistently give your body a reason to adapt by doing just a little more than you did before. Without this, your body's got no reason to change. It's the why behind every single bit of improvement you'll ever make. And here's the thing, it's not just about piling more and more weight on the bar. That's one way for sure, but you can also just add one more rep or one more set. Heck, even just improving your form and increasing your range of motion counts. Each one of these is a brand new challenge for your muscles to overcome. So you've applied the principle, you've created this stimulus with progressive overload, but how does that turn into actual muscle? Let's take a look under the hood at what's really happening inside your body. The fancy scientific name for this whole process is muscle hypertrophy. And it's not about creating new muscle fibers. It's about making the ones you already have bigger and stronger. That's the adaptation we're all chasing. So what actually triggers it? Well, it pretty much boils down to 3 key ingredients. First up is mechanical tension. This is the actual force your muscles have to generate to lift that weight. You know that feeling of strain and stretch deep in the muscle? That's it. And it's widely considered the most important driver for muscle growth. Next up, we have muscle damage. Now, I know that sounds like a bad thing, but trust me, it's good. Intense training creates these tiny microscopic tears in your muscle fibers. This signals your body to kickstart a massive repair process, building those fibers back even stronger and bigger than they were before. It's basically why you feel sore after a killer workout. And finally, our third ingredient is metabolic stress. This is that pump feeling. You know, when the muscle is full and tight, that's from a buildup of metabolic byproducts, like lactate, from all that hard work. And that accumulation also sends a powerful signal to your body telling it to adapt and grow. Okay, so we've got the formula, right? Progressive overload creates tension, damage, and stress, and that leads to hypertrophy. Seems simple enough, but what happens if you follow that training formula perfectly and then throw a giant wrench in the works by taking away a crucial piece of recovery: sleep. This is exactly what a fascinating study from 2020 decided to find out. Researchers took a group of guys, put them through a workout specifically designed to cause a lot of muscle damage, and then split them up. One group got to go home and sleep normally. The other poor souls, they were kept awake for 48 hours straight. Now, during this whole experiment, they tracked everything you'd want to know. How strong were the muscles recovering? What were the biological markers for damage looking like? And most importantly, what was going on with their hormones? The chemical messengers that literally tell your body whether to build up or break down. You'd probably assume no sleep equals terrible recovery, but you know what? The initial results were not what anyone expected. And this is where the story gets really, really interesting. So here it is, the first big shocker. This chart is showing us strength recovery. The black line is the group that slept, and the gray line is the sleep-deprived group. As you'd expect, both lost strength right after the workout. But then, look at the next 60 hours. Their strength came back at almost the exact same rate. On the surface, it looks like being sleep-deprived had zero effect. And that's the million-dollar question, right? If your strength is bouncing back just fine, who cares if you miss some sleep? It kind of seems like you can get away with it. But the problem wasn't what was happening on the outside. It was all about what was happening on the inside. And boom, here's the answer. While their strength was recovering, the sleep-deprived group's internal hormonal environment was an absolute train wreck. Their levels of cortisol, that's the stress hormone that breaks tissue down, were through the roof. This completely flipped their hormonal balance. So instead of being in an anabolic or muscle-building state, their bodies were stuck in a catabolic muscle breakdown state. They were literally getting weaker on the inside, even as they were feeling stronger on the outside. The researchers themselves basically said it all. While strength came back okay, the internal hormonal and inflammatory response was dramatically messed up. So you might feel recovered, but your body is not in a condition that actually allows for growth and repair. And over time, that just completely sabotages your progress. So, what's the big lesson here? What's the unified theory of growth? It's that training hard is only half the equation. The stimulus you create in the gym is absolutely essential, but the real adaptation, the actual growth, all of that happens when you recover. So here it is, the whole picture in 3 simple steps. Step 1, you have to apply progressive overload to create the stimulus for change. Step 2, that stimulus triggers hypertrophy through tension, damage, and stress. But step 3, this is the hidden variable. You must prioritize sleep. That's what creates the pro-growth hormonal environment where your body can actually do its job and rebuild. And that leaves us with one last question to think about. You meticulously plan your workouts, right? Every exercise, every set, every rep. But how much thought have you put into planning your recovery? Because as this science shows, that might just be where your results are truly decided.